former Speaker of the House, Austin Knudsen, now on the phone lines. Austin, great to hear from you. How you been?
I've been well, Aaron. How about you?
Hey, doing great. You're probably getting some time out on the ranch in Culbertson as we speak. Or you kind of switched to grain, didn't you?
Yeah, we're mostly grain and still got some sugar beets over here on the Missouri River Valley.
Yeah, great. Well, what's the big news?
Well, I'm glad. First of all, thanks for having me on. Always good to be on Montana Talks, and I want to announce to you and your listeners exclusively here this morning that Christy and I have been talking about this for a while, and we have decided that I am going to throw my hat in the ring and run for Montana Attorney General.
Yeah, big statewide seat coming up here in 2020. And, of course, former Speaker of the House, also an attorney and, farmer rancher from northeast Montana. What was the ultimate decision come down to for you and your wife?
There were a few things, Aaron. Obviously, being in the legislature for the last 8 years, I worked very closely with the current Attorney General, got very familiar with the budget issues and a lot of the issues coming out of DOJ. Also dealt with the governor's office a lot. There were certainly some positions that were taken that I didn't necessarily agree with as a conservative out of the Attorney General's office. But I mean, wasn't something I was, looking to throw anybody under the bus. But I have to tell you, the straw that broke the camel's back here is just recently when our current Attorney General and his Chief Deputy Attorney General filed an amicus brief in Texas versus U.S. And Aaron, what that is a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals case that's currently pending, asking the Fifth Circuit to strike down Obamacare as unconstitutional. 19 other Republican state attorneys general have joined that lawsuit, asking the court to strike that egregious law down. Obviously, this is a big thing for Montana voters and Montana citizens. We've all seen insurance premiums go up. I don't think anyone has seen their quality of care increase commensurately with the amount that their premiums have increased. And so we've got 19 state attorneys general who are trying to have that law struck down. And what finally got me into this race was the fact that our current attorney general and his chief deputy decided not to join that lawsuit. And in fact, they filed a brief asking the court to uphold Obamacare. And I just personally have a real problem with that. I've fought Obamacare being in the legislature. I think it's done vastly greater harm to the state of Montana than it's done good. So that was one thing, but I would say that was the straw that broke the camel's back that finally got me in this race.
Yeah, so not only have you worked as a lawyer, you also served as Speaker of the House. I think you got your undergrad degree from MSU, but then of course went to UM for law school. Talk about your time as Speaker of the House and some of your accomplishments that you're most proud of, and how that can tie in also with a run for Attorney General.
Sure. Well, just my background, Aaron. I've been a practicing attorney in Montana since 2008. Like you said, I got my undergraduate degree at Montana State. At the University of Montana in Missoula, just because there's not a law school in Bozeman. Little joke I like to throw in there.
I know, but I'd run into you at Grizz tailgate games, and I say, "Hey, have you become a Grizz yet?" Nope, still a Bobcat.
I tell people I'm the perfect Montana politician. I can be a Bobcat or a Grizz. But yeah, I moved home, been practicing law since 2008. In 2010, ran for the legislature. I was elected in my sophomore session in 2013. The entire House of Representatives elected me as the Speaker pro tem of the House, which is basically like the number two. In 2015, I was elected as the Speaker of the House. Now, we haven't actually looked into all the archives as far as we can go back, but as near as we can tell, I'm the youngest Speaker of the House in Montana history. I was also blessed to be asked to be the Speaker again for a second time in 2017, which we have not had a multi-term Speaker of the House in Montana since term limits were put in 1990. So multi-term speaker. I've dealt with Montana government, basically since 2011, Aaron. I'm very familiar with these issues. I've led people. I've been up to my elbows in the budget. I've dealt with the governor hand in hand. Usually hand to hand, dealing with his office and fighting over budget issues and various policy issues. So certainly, I know my way around the halls of the Capitol and how to come into Helena and make sure that the voice of Montana is being heard and not necessarily just the voice of Helena.
You mentioned the Obamacare and the legal battle over Obamacare earlier. What are some other differences that you think will stand out or even putting the Republican primary for Attorney General aside for a moment? What's going to be the differences between a Republican candidate for Attorney General versus a Democrat candidate for Attorney General? They've already got at least a couple of candidates on their side of the aisle that have announced also.
They do, and I think these are some really, really important distinctions, Aaron. I mean, first and foremost, I think you are looking at both of the Democrat candidates for Attorney General right now. I think it's really important that Montanans look at the Second Amendment. Now, this is one that we throw around a lot in the state, but it doesn't always get drilled down to a lot. The Second Amendment is a very, very important issue to Montanans. It's very important to me. I'm a hunter. I'm a competitive shooter. I'm a very enthusiastic firearms hobbyist, and that's an important one to me. We've got municipalities in Montana, and I'm gonna call them out. The city of Missoula that tries to enact local ordinances that are stricter than Montana state law regarding firearms, and that is blatantly against state law. Now, I'm the guy that that blew the whistle on the city of Missoula when they were looking at enacting that ordinance to begin with. I'm the guy that requested the Attorney General's opinion from our current Attorney General, arguing that was illegal, in which the Attorney General agreed with me. And now that's wrapped up in lawsuits. Of course, the city of Missoula saying, no, we do have the right as a local city in Montana to regulate firearms at a higher level than state law. And just patently, they don't, Aaron. I'm very familiar with this area of law, and obviously being a legislator, I'm very familiar with state law.
We got a caller on the line. Looks like Representative Steve Gunderson out of Libby. Steve, great to hear from you.
Hey, Aaron, just wanted to call in and just was listening to the fantastic news that Austin is in the AG race, and just wanted to give him a shout-out. And like I say, it's just great news for Montana. You'd be a great AG, Austin.
Representative Gunderson, thanks for calling in. Yeah, Austin Knudsen, I guess there's one of your first key endorsements there out of Libby, Montana.
That's one of them. You bet. That's one. I'll take it. Thanks a lot, Steve. Glad to hear you're listening up there in Libby, and thanks for the kind words. You bet.
Well, and as Attorney General, I mean, you're going to take on these big legal fights that protect Montana and kind of our issue areas. What's your take, on how you can, like in Libby, for example? I know Representative Gunderson is all over this, but we've got literally folks sitting on top of a gold mine, but they got to fly out of state to find work. They got to go mine in Alaska because they can't mine in their own backyard. High wage jobs, and so kind of combating these environmental groups in court could be a key feature of that job.
Absolutely, Aaron, and I think that's a really great area where the Attorney General's office can be very aggressive. And frankly, I don't think the Attorney General's office has been aggressive enough in those sorts of fights in the last few years, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to bring as Attorney General. As I'm sure Representative Gunderson or anybody that served with me will tell you, I'm not afraid to step in the ring and put on the boxing gloves and throw a few hands around. And I think that's what we've got to do. I mean, whether we're talking about Colstrip and getting involved in that lawsuit in Washington, which frankly I don't think we stepped into that one hard enough. There's a lot of legal areas in the state that we've got to get engaged and get active in order to push back on some of these environmental policies, definitely.
We've got only about a minute to go till we're already out of time, so I would take the phone call, but I'll summarize in the interest of time, and then I can give out your website as well before we wrap up so folks know how to get a hold of you and your campaign. But we got a phone call from Martin in Clark, Wyoming, and I know Martin is a Montana native. He wants to know what's your stance on the CSKT Water Compact?
That's a great question, Martin, and very quickly, I was a very staunch opponent of the Water Compact. I think there were very serious problems legally with that law. I went on the record in the legislature in order to preserve that lawsuit, but there were provisions of it that were blatantly unconstitutional. It was rammed through despite my objections. So I fought that law very, very hard.
All right. And website, if folks want to get a hold of you or be a part of your campaign, how can they get a hold of you, Austin?
You bet. It's www.austin4montana, all spelled out, AUSTINFORMONTANA, austin4montana.com.